Imagine a city boiling with anger. Hungry crowds fill the streets, bread is scarce, and taxes crush the poor while nobles and clergy live in luxury. The year is 1789, and France is on the brink of revolution. At the heart of Paris stands a massive stone fortress, the Bastille. To the monarchy, it was a prison for political enemies. To the people, it was the ultimate symbol of tyranny and oppression. On July 14, 1789, ordinary citizens decided they had had enough. They marched, armed themselves, and stormed the Bastille in an act that shook the world. In just one day, a fortress turned into rubble, and history was forever changed. But the question is, why did this single event become the symbol of the French Revolution? What pushed the people to take such drastic action? And how did the fall of the Bastille transform not just France, but the course of modern history? Today, on AI History, we uncover the real story of the fall of the Bastille, the day the people changed history. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. And tell me in the comments, if you had been in Paris that day, would you have joined the crowd storming the fortress? By the late 18th century, France was a nation in crisis. Years of war had drained the royal treasury, and the extravagant lifestyle of King Louis XVI and the court at Versailles pushed the country deeper into financial ruin. The burden of this crisis, however, did not fall on the nobility or the clergy. It was the ordinary people, peasants, workers, and the emerging middle class, who carried the weight. Heavy taxes, rising bread prices, and constant hunger created a daily struggle for survival. Meanwhile, the first and second estates, the clergy and the nobility, enjoyed immense privileges. They paid little to no taxes and lived in comfort, while the majority of the population, the so-called third estate, endured endless hardship. This inequality was more than just economic, it was social and political. Ordinary citizens had almost no voice in government, while the monarchy clung to absolute power. The anger of the people was not only about hunger, but also about dignity, rights, and justice. By 1789, the situation had reached a breaking point. Rumors spread through Paris of plots, conspiracies, and the king's attempts to silence reform. The city was a powder keg, and all it needed was a spark. The Bastille was not the largest prison in France, nor was it filled with thousands of captives. In fact, by 1789, only a handful of prisoners were held within its walls, but its importance went far beyond numbers. For the people of Paris, the Bastille symbolized everything they despised about the monarchy. Its massive stone walls, guarded towers, and armed soldiers represented absolute power. A fortress where kings could lock away anyone who dared to oppose them, without trial, without explanation, and without hope. It was not just a prison, it was a reminder that the king ruled by fear. The very sight of the Bastille, looming over the eastern gate of Paris, struck unease in the hearts of citizens. For years, intellectuals, philosophers, and common people alike had spoken of tearing it down. To destroy the Bastille would mean more than freeing prisoners. It would mean destroying a symbol of tyranny itself. By July 1789, with tensions rising and bread riots spreading across Paris, the Bastille was no longer seen as a fortress. It was seen as the target, the one structure whose fall could signal that change had finally arrived. In May 1789, King Louis XVI summoned the Estates General, a rare assembly meant to address France's financial crisis. It brought together representatives of the clergy, the nobility, and the common people. But instead of solving problems, it revealed the deep fractures within French society. The Third Estate, representing the vast majority of the population, demanded real reform and equal political power. When the king resisted, they broke away and declared themselves the National Assembly, the true voice of the people. Paris was electrified by this act of defiance. Crowds filled the streets, debating, organizing, and spreading rumors of royal plots to crush the movement. Soldiers loyal to the crown were stationed around the city, increasing the sense of tension. By July, bread shortages grew worse, tempers ran hotter, and the people of Paris began to arm themselves. On July 13th, mobs raided armories, seizing muskets and gunpowder. But one crucial supply remained locked away in a fortress that had come to symbolize everything wrong with the monarchy: the Bastille. The spark had been lit. The people were ready to take action. And the next day, history would be changed forever. The morning of July 14th began with thousands of Parisians gathering in the streets, determined to seize the weapons and gunpowder stored inside the Bastille. Among them were artisans, workers, and ordinary citizens who believed this fortress represented the final barrier to their freedom. As the crowd surrounded the massive gates, they demanded that the guards surrender the fortress and release the supplies. Negotiations were attempted, but the tension was unbearable. Hours passed and patience ran out. Soon, cannons were positioned, shots were exchanged, and chaos erupted. Smoke filled the air as the people of Paris launched their assault. Despite the Bastille's thick walls and armed defenders, the sheer determination of the crowd was unstoppable. By late afternoon, the garrison, overwhelmed and outnumbered, surrendered. The gates of the Bastille were thrown open, and the fortress that had once symbolized royal power now belonged to the people. The storming of the Bastille was more than the fall of a prison. It was a declaration. The monarchy's authority was no longer absolute, and the people of France had found their voice. That day, Paris was not just a city in revolt. It was the birthplace of a revolution. News of the Bastille's fall spread like wildfire, not only across Paris but throughout France and beyond. For the people, it was more than just the capture of a fortress. It was the collapse of a symbol of oppression. Across the countryside, peasants were inspired to rise up against local lords, demanding justice and relief from centuries of burden. In cities, citizens celebrated, convinced that a new era had begun. The storming of the Bastille quickly became the defining image of the French Revolution. Artists painted it, writers described it, and politicians used it as proof that the people, once united, could reshape history itself. Outside France, monarchs trembled while reformers cheered. To some, the fall of the Bastille was a warning of what could happen when rulers ignored their people. To others, it was a beacon of hope, proof that the old order could be challenged. The Bastille no longer existed, but its destruction echoed louder than the walls that once stood. It became a universal symbol of resistance, revolution, and the unstoppable power of the people. The fall of the Bastille did not end the struggles of France. In fact, it marked only the beginning of years of revolution, change, and upheaval. But its legacy was immediate and lasting. Every year, on July 14th, the French commemorate Bastille Day, not just as the capture of a fortress, but as the birth of a new spirit: liberty, equality, and fraternity. It stands as a reminder that when ordinary people come together, they can challenge even the strongest powers. The Bastille itself is gone, its stones dismantled and sold as souvenirs. Yet its absence is more powerful than its presence ever was. Where once stood a prison of fear, today stands a symbol of freedom celebrated worldwide. The story of the Bastille is not just about France. It is about the universal struggle of humanity against oppression, and the enduring belief that no wall, no fortress, no ruler is greater than the will of the people. The storming of the Bastille on July 14, 1789, was not just the fall of a fortress. It was the fall of fear, of centuries of unchecked power, and of a system that believed it could last forever. In a single day, ordinary citizens armed with determination and courage rewrote history. They proved that symbols of oppression could be torn down, and that the voices of the people could shake the very foundations of a kingdom. The Bastille may be gone, but its spirit remains alive. It reminds us that history is not only written by kings, queens, or rulers, but also by citizens who dare to rise against injustice. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. No matter how strong the walls may seem, they can always fall when people choose freedom over fear. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think events like the fall of the Bastille could still inspire movements for freedom in our modern world? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to AI History, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming journeys into the darkest and brightest chapters of our past. Because history, even in its most turbulent moments, always has something to teach us.